Hi, this is Julia Ebber, and today I'm going to show you how I'm retouching my street photography picture in Lightroom. Let's go! So as you can see, I have all my folders saved over here and I already made a selection. Some of these pictures are already edited while others are not. So today we're gonna edit some of the unedited together. So this one is very, as you can see, is quite dark. So the first thing that I'm gonna do, I'm going to develop and I'm trying to see like the suggested in auto. So yeah, we can see that it gets a little more of yellow greenish color, but it doesn't really change so much the color. And let me go in this part in auto for checking the tone, but in this case I don't like it. It's too bright, so it really miss color scheme that I would like to achieve. I will keep the white balance in auto for the moment, and I'm going to straighten up my image in this way. And I will try to keep the little sign over here. I crop a little bit more and let me have a look. Okay, I think it's kind of fine. And the next step, I'm going to increase a little bit more the contrast, push down the highlights. Normally it's something that I always do because I think my highlights are always too high, and increase a little bit exposure but not so much. So this is just a basic adjustment of the image, but what I like to do is also to give it that cinematic look. We can do in different ways, and one way that we can go over here where is masking. And in the new version of Lightroom you have more option to do this kind of masking, and I'm gonna use linear gradient. With linear gradient I'm gonna use it in this way from the bottom to the top, so we know that it's gonna mask just in this area. And what I'm going to do, I'm gonna push down the exposure, so I want this part to be quite dark, and then I'm gonna play a little bit with the color. So we see that the color in the general image are between blue and let's say yellow, even if it's not really yellow, but I want to make this contrast more visible. So I'm gonna push down the blue color, as you can see, and even increase a little bit the contrast and push even more down this part. I think it's quite interesting, so we can see before and after. The image get already a little bit more of depth in the general vibe. One thing that I would like also to do, I think this part on the left side is a little bit too bright and the attention is not really focalized, so I'm going to create a new mask again with linear gradient, and in this case I'm going to do a diagonal linear gradient, and basically I do the same. I'm going to push down the exposure, increase the contrast, and put a little bit more of blue. So now we have this very nice masking with the color. So now we need to work on our light side. I'm going to create another mask on this side, and I'm going to put diagonal but very wide in this case. And I'm going to start working with color first. So let me increase. For example, I don't like it here is too yellowish. Move a little bit the mask. Let's try to put it more in this way, to put it less stronger. So in this way. Okay. We have more a warm tone in this moment. Let me put down the exposure. And then put down also the highlights. And let's increase the contrast. So it's starting working a little bit better than before. We can still always adjust everything. As you can see, even if I put down, actually I think it's quite interesting because it gets more the yellow vibe. Let's try to push a little bit more harder. Okay, so as you can see now it's very moody. So maybe I think it's a little bit too much. Let's try in this way. I'm gonna put down more in that way. It's even too much. Okay. As you can see, the general vibe of this image is a little bit more cinematic. Also, we are using the very basic color contrast between the blue and the yellow. And I think basically it could work. We can tweak a little bit more adjustment in our mask. But you see, we started with a very flat image and we ended up with something that is a little bit more interesting. I think for this image I'm quite okay. Normally what I do after the editing, I just save as it is when I'm kind of satisfied, and then I'm gonna revise later to see if I'm still happy or if this image needs more changing. One thing that we can also do, of course, if we have like a preset, we can also try to use our preset, but in this case are too strong. I don't think this could potentially work if we are in this vibe, but I don't think so. Let me try the cinematic one. As you can see, like the cinematic one, normally cinematic 12, it normally gives these tones between the blue and the yellow. Another one normally that works quite well is the cinematic 18. That it is quite nice, as you can see. If we really like it, we can still keep it, make it like less strong, and something like that could work as well. So let's say before the moment, I'm gonna put like a blue tag, just to remind me what we have done. The green one is what I already edited, the blue one is the new edit. And let's move on with something a little bit different, but basically the process, it's always the same. Let's maybe see this picture. We're gonna go again in develop. I'm gonna make it more straight. I really wish this line would be more straight. Let's try to achieve without not losing too much of our subject, or even closing more in this. Let's go very close to the subject actually. Okay, something like that. Let me try the auto, so it's more into the yellow. It really doesn't matter at the moment. And the auto, no, I don't like it. It's again too strong. I'm gonna just adjust my exposure, increase my contrast, put down my highlights, and I think I'm basically fine with this. And now I'm gonna work again into this part. As we can see color-wise, I think here is our light part, and while on the right side we have our darkest area. Let's try to do something like that, to concentrate more the vision on our subject. I put down the exposure, increase the contrast, and let's give them a little bit of blue, but not too much blue in this way. Let me create another linear gradient in this way, in this case, and again the exposure just a little bit down, contrast up, highlights a little bit like in this way, and we push a little bit, maybe. Then of course this yellow is too much, and if I put this is interesting. If we put more in the blue version, I like it because it gives the idea the blue of the fridge, while on the top part we have a little bit of warm. So let's work on the warm part of the image. We can even use, if we really want to, let's use a radial gradient that is, as the word say, radial. It's a little bit different, and I just add that light. And this way. And if I really want to make even more, separate the subject from everything, I would add a different mask. I would put exposure down. Our subject is basically going up from the shadow, and I can always adjust whatever I done. So as you can see, if we put on the blue, it doesn't really work. I will keep it in white, not too much because it will make it look too fake. And then let me go back to our original picture. I will just increase the contrast and maybe the tone in this way. So yeah, I think this picture could work in this way. If we want also to create more depth in the image, we can always work with curves in this way. just a tiny bit. I normally don't do very strong editing change because I don't think it's my style, but just subtles to give that little bit more concentration on the subject. I'm quite happy with this picture. Let's save it as well with the blue label, and let's try to see another one. Okay, let's move on with a different picture that is maybe shot with more lights to see the difference. I've selected these two pictures before, but I think this one with the feet is definitely a no, so we're gonna move to this other picture. That, as we can see, there's so much going on. Let me crop it a little bit. So I don't want to lose, of course, the feet of the guy, but I want to be more into our subject. Let's see. There is this person over here that is a little bit annoying, but if I crop in this way, I think is completely unbalanced, so maybe not. We don't care, we have this little head over there. Let's see our auto. Oh, it's absolutely too yellow, so let's keep it as it is. Let's just keep the highlights down, tiny bit of exposure and a tiny bit of contrast. Okay, so we just finish our adjustment. What I would like to do, instead of going through the masking, I think it's time to work a little bit with hue, saturation and luminance. We're gonna work more on the color of the picture. Let's start with the hue. So I think let's start increasing the red vibe that we can see already a tiny bit over here. Then we saw that we have a lot of yellow, and the color was also suggesting a yellow. Let's try something like that. We have some green, something like this. Let's try the blue. We started seeing the changing in the picture, definitely. As you can see, before and after, we have something already changing. But let's move on the luminance in this case. Okay, the red tiny bit stronger, as well as the orange that is more like about the skin tones of people. And let's try to put this a little bit down. It's basically always moving these settings and find out which one works in our picture. We don't have like the right combination. It's always, you see, if you go very strong, you can always have different vibe. We don't have nothing with purple and magenta. And now we work on saturation because it's gonna make the big change basically. Okay. So let's try something like that. Okay. Maybe like this. Find the green in this way. So let's have a look. Oh, so we gain more blue depth in this area. The green vibes is a little bit gone, and it's more a little bit more clean, as we can see. So it's more like the right color that is supposed to be. Now let's work with the color grading. I'm gonna start with a shadow, and I'm gonna work on adding a little bit of blue as usual, while for the highlights we are working on the yellow part. Of course, this is too much. Just maybe something like this. And let's work on the mid-tone. The mid-tones are very strong in this moment. Let's try to stay in the red in this way and make it a tiny bit darker. Now put this a little bit up, this a little bit down. I'm gonna add a little bit of yellow in the temperature. Let's see. Let's also try to add anyway some kind of mask. I just put the exposure not too much because it will look like weird. And also over here, just like a tiny bit. I think this picture is not a very strong picture, I have to say. I think I selected a better picture in my previous selection, but I think it's an alright picture. Not everything could be perfect all the time, but I think for this image, I think I'm pretty happy with the result. So let's label it. One thing that it could be interesting, for example, we are happy with this retouching. So what we can do, we can just press Control and click in Mac, so Ctrl plus right click on computer. We go in Develop Setting and we copy our settings. We don't copy the mask in this case, just in case. Copy. For example, let's go in this picture, okay? And I'm gonna do basically the same. So Control click, Develop Setting, Past Settings. And as we can see, we have passed exactly the same settings. And then if we really want to work on this big picture, we can still, so we put just now in this case, the highlights, okay? And then, yes, in this case, we definitely need a mask. Something like that. So it creates immediately more like viewing in this part of the image. We're gonna also do on this side, but not too much because it's gonna look too obvious. And maybe for her with the brush, we can do something very not too crazy. Just you see, a tiny amount, and then I think this picture can be definitely more yellow. Maybe even in this part we can add a little bit more blue to create more contrast, so there is like a link between the umbrella and this area. So this is also something that we can do while we're editing our images. This is basically what I'm doing while I'm retouching my picture. I basically work all the time in Lightroom, and sometimes I go into Photoshop if I really want to change something specifically that I'm not able to do in Lightroom. So let me know in the comment section below if you like also this type of video. I can go more in depth about retouching if you're interested in this type of content as well. Let me know what you normally do in your picture. I'm very curious because I'm really open to learn more techniques. What you normally use? Do you use action? Anything. I'm very, very curious. Thank you for watching and see you next week. Ciao!